state, then I'm never going to make progress. And so a mentor in my eyes, when I talk to other folks, it's like, I don't really want to walk up to them and be like, pat them on the shoulder, like, hey, you need help. It's not that you need help emotionally, right? It's sometimes though, you need that other perspective. And, I think as a lot of small business owners, I've started several small businesses on my own. uh, that they are our mentors, as we now define them, as we get more sophisticated in the work that we do, actually are called different things. I mean, sometimes literally, they're a business coach or an advisor or a friend who's able to give you that objective experience, that objective insight, right? That person who cares about you, understands your company's vision, and is going to give you um, guidance, right? You're not relying on them like legal counsel. They're not your accountant, right? They are someone who understands generally the business or generally the industry, who recognizes your effort and then guides you through that. And sometimes it can be a family member. I don't usually like to mix business with family because I need them to I need them in a different
For other
compartment
roles.
of emotional
Yeah.
support, right? And so I think oftentimes, when somebody walks up and says a mentor, well, what's that? And it's like, you probably have a mentor, but you're not engaging them regularly, or you don't have a structure around that relationship. Um, but know that some of the best, most successful companies, I think we're going to get to this later, have executive business coaches. And as a small business, we may not have the budget to allocate to a professional executive business coach, but it's there, it's invaluable. So I'm hoping that I'm answering your question, Wendy, about my passion on this, of coming from a small business. Like, okay, I've got this vision, I'm working my 12 and 14-hour days, I'm working hard, and somebody that you can, as you mentioned, that vulnerability. It's not that I'm walking in with my tissue box every time we meet, right? But that I'm walking in with this, with with tasks or homework assignments or something else that, when you leave that conversation with this respected individual who doesn't have anything else like vested or interested other than your success and your company's success, and to be able to take their advice from there.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said. A couple of themes I want to parse out, and then Kanita, I'm going to go to you to really talk about finding this person, right? Because
Right.
there are lots of sources
Yeah.
for business advice, for coaches, for mentors, for people who want to help.
Yes.
And I want to make sure we guide those watching and participating on how best to find them. But before I do, I just want to anchor a few things. I mean, the first step as an entrepreneur, and Owen, you're going to get to talk about this based on your experience, you have to know that you need one, and you have to be vulnerable and ask for help from somebody.
Right.
And they may not have the mentor t-shirt on,
Right.
but you will be proactive in going to them because of a specific need or some level of awareness, that you have experience. And of course, maybe it's COVID craziness and the set of crises that surrounded COVID, or it may be just an awareness that there's a functional area that you're not as strong in, and you need to top that up, right? And maybe you don't want to read. Maybe you don't want to listen to a podcast. All of us learn different ways, right? So the modalities of learning sometimes are best when you're experiencing the problem with someone else.
Hands-on learning opportunity. And another thing, I think, as a small business owner, and we could probably talk about this for days, and we have in the past, but Wendy, I think it's also important as a small business owner There are a number of models that we build our businesses, and sometimes we start a business because I want to be a better manager than what I've experienced before. I want to run a different type of company, and I want this transparency layer. And to be honest, sometimes as an owner or as a business, you can't tell everybody everything and every challenge that you're going through. You know, you can sometimes, it's a risk, it's too great of a risk, and it can often feel very lonely at the top, right? And having someone who you can have that, you know, it's not quite pick up the phone, but it's, you know, they're not on call for you. Don't get it twisted, right? But it's having someone who you can have those high level conversations with to help guide, I think, some, you know, sometimes some very critical conversations for your company that you can't necessarily have with all of your staff. And Owen's probably going to be able to speak to that a little bit too. So
Yeah, that's perfect.
thank you.
Yeah. So Kanita, I have a how question. So let's assume, you know, that I've become aware that there's a weakness that needs to be addressed, a gap that needs to be filled. And I'm feeling, you know, I'm not in a state of perfection. I know that I need to reach out and get some help. I'm willing to be vulnerable. How do I even select one? What am I looking for? How do I create the right match? And this is not that I'm asking someone else to do it like we've done it with Energize Colorado, but just me and my own self. How do I get going and find one? Coach me on that a little bit.
Yeah, Wendy. So I think those questions that you're asking is something that everyone should ask themselves as they are looking for a mentor. So why are you looking for a mentor? Write that down. Like, what are your goals? What are you trying to get out of this relationship? And I think relationship is a key word there. Mentee mentor interaction is a relationship that, you know, you want to cultivate. Are you looking for personal support? Are you looking at, you know, how can I talk to someone? For me, you know, I have a small business, I have a startup, and I have a kid, someone who can help me navigate. How do I try to do all of this? Maybe that's what I'm looking for mentorship in. Maybe I am looking to scale up my small business and I'm looking for a very specific kind of professional support. Or perhaps I am building a mobile app and I need a developer. So I think these are really important questions, like who should your mentor be? What do you want in this person? And I think that takes a lot of homework in trying to understand your why in seeking this relationship. Also, do you want someone who is identity important to you? So for me, my business is focused on supporting women-owned businesses and BIPOC-owned businesses, and that is important to me. And when I am looking for a mentor, I want someone who gets it and gets the challenges I am facing or that I'm tackling, or issues that I'm interested in. That's really important to me. For some people, it might not be, but if it is, you know, consider that as you're thinking about who to work with. Is industry alignment important to you? For example, with Energize, I am working with childcare providers. And in some ways, it is helpful to have that context as a mentor to know, you know, what are the challenges that these providers are facing, and why is it important to get the help you need there. So after you figure out these big questions and important questions, I think that's where you go to where do you find a mentor? And Colorado is just this amazing state with incredible organizations who have mentor programs, and everyone has their own personal networks. And I think you can think of that as a place you can tap into to potentially seek mentor relationships as well. You know, who might you know who is supportive of you and your efforts, who might want to connect you with others within their networks. So there is mentorship that you can find that way. And then there are organizations like Energize Colorado who has our own mentorship program that provides support to mentors from a variety of backgrounds, levels of expertise, et cetera. And a small business can come to Energize and say, and filter by certain things, like I am a woman-owned business and I would like a founder who is a woman to be my mentor. And I'm also a childcare provider, so I would love to find someone who has expertise in that area. There are other organizations as well. The Commons on Champa supports startups throughout Denver. They have a mentor program. Experienced Engaged is also in our state, and they have a program that's focused solely on providing support to childcare providers. United Ways United for Business program, they provide business advising, another word for mentorship, right? To women and minority-owned businesses in the Globeville, Elyria, Swansea area. So there are just so many mentor programs out there, and they all have specific areas of focus. So which one might be the best fit for you? So that's the where question.
Yeah. So there, we'll make sure when we summarize the session that we can offer up specific resources so folks can access what they need. I do think one of your early statements is important. And you said you've got to get clear yourself on what problems or opportunities or gaps you're optimizing for. My experience in being a mentor and even being a mentee is that once I kind of get ready and find the person, because that's a challenge, I get so excited that I either overshare, and then the mentor has no clue where to begin. So that's me not getting clear enough about where I really am in the trajectory or the life cycle of my business and what 2 or 3 problems I want to start with. Because oversharing is overwhelming for the mentor. I mean, it happens to me a lot. Like people just come at me. I'm like, oh, you know, where would I start? I want to be helpful, but I don't know where to start. So if you need a mentor, I would really ask that you get clear where you are in your business, what kind of mentor you need. Do they need to look like you? Or do they just need to have functional experience or functional expertise, I should say? Or maybe you just need them to have done it a long time. So experience is different from expertise. Experience has to do with how long someone has done it. Expertise has to do with the knowledge they have and the depth of that knowledge, right? And so I just think getting clear, if you're the person that needs a mentor, like start there. And then that will give you a good foundation to work with the person you've either reached out to, or the other thing I'd say, Kenita, that I heard from you is it may take, you know, the whole idea of kissing frogs. It may take you a few shots at it, right? The first person you talk to is not always the right person. They're good people and they've offered to help, but it's okay to reflect on that experience and say, okay, this is not exactly what I need for now. I'll come back to you, Mark, right? So I think the whole notion of getting clear before you start searching for a mentor, that personal reflection, that specificity can go a long way. Because I'm going to go to you next, Mark. I do think kind of the anchor points of a mentor-mentee relationship are truth and respect. But you can't check that box. You don't say to Owen, please trust me and please respect me. That takes some time. And even in a crisis, you've got to figure out how I can really get into the psyche of each other so there can be trust, truth, respect. Because without that, I don't think there's much exchange, right? It's all kind of happy talk. And and you say, well, I had that mentoring session and that was good. So I like to be thoughtful about how comfortable are we both being truthful? How much respect can we develop by when? Because it's going to take respect, either because I've been doing something a long time, or I'm an expert in fill in the blank, or I'm like you, I'm a woman-owned business, And then I think flexibility is pretty essential. If you're not flexible in your perspectives and understanding people, you're not going to be a great mentee or a great mentor. If you're too hard and fast, if everything's black or white, you got to really get down with gray. This is all about ambiguity. It's about gray, because you're trying to get your mentee or your mentor to be where you are. So there's a discovery process that has to happen. So take me from there a little bit, Mark. I mean, we've talked, Lashida was beautiful in her description of mentorship and her thoughts around that and the vulnerability required. And Kanita was very specific about getting some definitions and clarity. So before you start reaching out. And so let's pretend like, we found each other. So I've gotten kind of clear. I'm not going to overshare. And I'm now meeting with you the first time. And I understand the need for trust and truth and respect. And I understand the need for flexibility. I'm not sure I can represent that, but at least intellectually I can. Talk to me about engaging then, if I am just beginning my relationship with you. How does that happen?
Sure. Well, I can build off a lot of the things that you've mentioned. So I think meeting a mentor for the first time is like going on a blind date, maybe. It's a bit awkward. You're very polite. You're not sure where to start. So let's talk about how to take and prepare for that. And a good way to start, the things that you just mentioned about, is being prepared to talk about the background of the business. You really want to take and paint a picture for that individual, the mentor that you're meeting with. You want to talk about the type of business that you have. You want to talk about how you got started. Was it an idea? Did you get laid off? And suddenly this opportunity presented itself. You want to talk as well about, why did you start the business? What was your real motivation behind it? Because I think that gives insights for the mentor in knowing how to approach the business and get a sense of how you're approaching it as well. And then I think it's important to talk about who's involved. Do you have a partner? Is it a family? Is it just you? So all of those things begin to paint a picture for the mentor to help them better understand. Another critical part will be being able to talk about the status of the business. Where are you at today? For all of us, we've had this COVID thing, right? That was out there that disrupted all of us in one way or the other. Where are you at today? How did you get through that? And, how are things going on a day-to-day basis today for you? And where are there things that we can, talk about that are most relevant for you? And that leads into something you talked about too, and it was about the challenges. You have a mentor, and a mentor is there to provide you with guidance in certain areas of expertise. So you want to talk to them about, where are your challenges? Is it acquiring a new customer? Is it traffic to your store, to your restaurant, or to your website? Are there back-end operations on fulfillment, or looking for other resources or suppliers that you're trying to work with? Or is there something on the money side, on your fundraising? So coming into that meeting, clearly understanding what the challenges are and how you want to take and work with that mentor. And I'll say leverage, and I mean that in a positive way. Their expertise, their resources, their network. I think that will be really important for that. And then a final area is this idea of a vision. Help the mentor understand, where do you want to go? We know where you started, we know where you're at today, but where do you want to take the business? I've worked with some small companies through Energize, and they have a family business and they want to continue and be able to pass it on to the next generation. There are others who have this great idea and they just want to build it up and sell it. So that's really important to understand what your vision is for the business and how this individual can help you get there, wherever there may be. I do want to talk about something that you mentioned earlier, in this idea of not being defensive. I think a good mentor will ask some tough questions, and they do that to push you, to help you think about the business and why you're doing the things that you're doing. And they're trying to take and understand the business as well, and in helping you define what that path forward needs to be. So, at those times, try to step back and listen. And I think listening is a really critical part of that, to be able to answer those tough questions. They're being asked out of respect to you and trying to understand your business and through that. Once you've gotten that first relationship down and you think you want to build something with this individual, I think it's really important to think about and talk about the dynamic of that relationship. Always remember, you as the mentee, the business owner, you're in control of your business and that mentorship relationship. The mentor is there to provide you with insights and guidance, and you can either accept or reject that information, but they're there to provide that to you. So it's always important to understand that. And then how much time and the frequency that you spend with that mentor, that's really something that the two of you need to work out. And it can be driven by the business needs. It can be driven by timing, events. A lot of different things can play into that. And you may find yourself saying, look, I think it'd be best, given where we're at, that I would like a weekly call, or maybe it's every 2 weeks, or maybe it's monthly, or maybe it evolves. I've had folks where we were on the phone once a week, and then once things started going, I just touch base with them about once a month. How are things progressing? How are you doing? We talked about this. How is that going for you? Or they'll reach back to me, and it could be months. They'll come back and say, hey, Mark, I was thinking about this. What do you think? So take and work with your mentor to figure out the frequency and the pacing that's going to work best for you. And then the other part of that too is the length of the relationship. And these questions come up a lot. Like how long is this kind of relationship? And it can be whatever you need it to be or want it to be. Sometimes it's just a question. I have a very specific issue that I'm trying to address. I found the right mentor. I want to talk to them about it. We work through it and we're done. And that's great. And maybe you'll have another issue later on, and you'll find a different mentor to help you with that. In other cases, the relationship may evolve, and this truly may become more of a friend, mentor, someone who's truly guiding you. And the relationship is strong enough and the trust is there, as you mentioned, Wendy, to want to work with that person over a longer period of time. And that's okay too. It's really what's going to work for you. And as long as there's value coming out for both sides, then I think that kind of evolves, and you determine when it's good and you want to continue it, or when you're done and your questions have been asked. So let me shift gears a little bit, in that sometimes mentorships can go sideways. And sometimes that happens when I'm both the mentor, the mentee, or the small business side. On the mentor side, sometimes you can have a mentor who's so enthusiastic, who tells you everything that you should be doing with your business. And you have to kind of do one of those timeouts and step back. And that step back could be, maybe you reduce your frequency of it, or, you always have to understand that you're in control around that. So I just, caution that can happen. And both the mentor, you get so excited about the business that, you think it's yours, and it's not. You're there to help provide guidance around that. And there's some other things to think about. Communication. It's really important that that the mentee, the small business, that this is not a passive role. You control how you contact, and remember that the mentor is there on a volunteer basis. So if you set up an appointment, make the appointment. If you can't, then just let them know and reschedule. Don't ghost someone. That's just something that you don't want to do. The mentee doesn't do the work. You have a session. I think, Nishita, you talked about this. You have some homework to do, and you don't do it. Now, sometimes that happens because you're just so busy. I mean, you've got your life, you got your business, you got all these other things. But if you're there as a partnership and you're working together, if there are things that need to be done to take a look at your records, or maybe it's read a book or a worksheet, whatever it may be, if there's homework to be done, make the commitment and make sure that happens for you. We talked about this a little bit before, listening and getting that feedback. I think as a business owner, increasing your self-awareness is really necessary to take and address any problems and to take and grow your business. So I think you need to know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and where are you vulnerable. And so being able to listen and provide that self-awareness is going to be really important for you as well. And then the final part of this, I would say, is really taking and valuing and having respect on both sides. As a mentor, you're respecting this individual who's running a business. They want to be successful. So respect that and how they approach the business, because it is their business. And as a mentee, I think there needs to be respect there as well with regard to the professionalism and the insights perhaps and expertise that this mentor can bring to you as well. And so think about that. And then I would just say one final thing on this is that pay it forward. We talk about, we have this theme in Energize Colorado where we talk about, Coloradans helping Coloradans. And this is a great opportunity, whether you're a small business who's working with a mentor or you're a mentor, take the knowledge and experience that you have, see where you can help someone else. Because they may be in the same boat. They may be hesitant to go out and get a mentor. Maybe you can provide some additional insights for them. So on the engagement side, lots of things, prepare for it. Make sure you engage, make sure you're actively involved in it. And I think if you can make those things happen, you'll have a great relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome, Mark. I feel your passion for the subject, and I appreciate you sharing all the specifics of engagement. It's a lot, right? I mean, and let's say, but it's like any other relationship, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
you have to put some work into it.
Yeah, this does not, people don't just suit up, show up, give you a specific perfect answer, and then go away. I mean, it takes dialogue, it takes time, it takes commitment. And I think at the end of the day, it's through dialogue, time, and commitment that trust and respect is developed. And I will share before we wrap up with Owen, or at least from this phase of the panel, that as I look back over decades of history, mentoring and being mentored, so being both a mentor and a mentee, good business is all about good relationships. And even if the mentor did not solve the problem that I maybe needed specific help with, either they didn't have time or they didn't have the expertise that was really relevant for that problem, they still cared enough to spend time with me. And I respect that a lot, because time is so precious and you don't get that back once it's invested, right? And so even if that problem isn't solved for the business, the beginning of a relationship is there. And I think when you look at the relationship between a mentee and mentor that way, then all good things happen. And even as you may have to have other advisors or other mentors too. And so I would just encourage us to have that perspective as we do the outreach, to find and engage with a mentor. So Owen, you're the special guest of the show. And in that way, in that I mean, you actually had the idea, raised your hand, did the outreach to Energize Colorado, and perhaps you have mentors in other networks too. Most people do. So I'm curious about how you would encourage others in the audience, other small business owners, to really maximize, their experiences and the benefits that can be exchanged through the relationship of a mentee and mentor. So how did you do that? Like, take us back to that moment and then what you did to get the very most you could out of the experience so trust could be developed.
Sure. I think, we started kind of with everyone else kind of stating this earlier in the panel, is good self-evaluation. We knew we had some problems. You know, I think Lashida said it earlier, is, you know, you have this confidence that you're an entrepreneur and you can kind of wear every hat and kind of move forward, and you kind of have to start and to kind of go that way. But you realize that you're not good at all those things, and even if you are, maybe you shouldn't be spending the time on those things. And if you can get help in those areas, you need to prioritize it. You know, in the whiskey world, we need to be out there selling whiskey and pouring samples and sharing the product and the story, creating those relationships that you were just mentioning, right? So if we can do more of that and get help in these other areas, you know, prioritizing that was a key for us. You know, we started using the mentor program when COVID hit. You know, we were a new business right that time. You know, our product was on shelves for a little more than a year, but we're still so new to the market. We knew that we needed help, and how to navigate PPP loans, for instance. You know, just things like that you know, you didn't write into your business plan model when you first started. And I think that was mentioned earlier. The flexibility is, you know, you kind of have this passion, this thought, you know. I think Kenita said it, your compass of where you want to go, but you got to be flexible enough to know that you need help in those areas. So when COVID hit, we're like, hey, we need help from everyone who will listen to us, right? So we signed up for 3 mentors. So we took 3 mentors. We looked at the business. We knew we needed some, you know, business modeling help, some financial help. We knew we wanted to grow. I think Mark mentioned a vision. We kind of move into our own production facility is kind of the vision down the road, but we need help kind of short term as well. So we started with 3 mentors, kind of had, you know, the list of things that we were looking for. And, you know, we understood, my business partner, Rick, and we have volunteered for a couple other nonprofit boards ourselves. So we kind of had an understanding of this value relationship, that they're a volunteer, we need to respect their time. So we kind of had that perspective going into it. So each mentor we'd meet with the first time through and kind of give them, you know, the short story of how we started and where we go, to not give them every problem in the world. As an entrepreneur, you kind of look at it as like, we could use help everywhere. Once you realize you need help and go there, you're like, everywhere could be better.
Well, it's that whole thing of, we're just a hot mess. Where do I start?
Right.
Like,
So you kind of have this.
You really don't want to look at the insides of us like I have to look at the insides of us, right?
Right. And so there's pardon me, there's this, you know, self-awareness of, okay, there's this funnel of, we need help everywhere. What are the priorities that we really could use help with? Looking for that expertise, the mentors. And so the mentors for us, we talked with all 3, you know, kind of had that brief kind of background of, you know, where we are, where we're going, where we need help with. And we kind of gave each one a different kind of project to help us with. So we weren't overloading them, right? So we could have, okay, you have expertise and experience in these areas. We'll give you that section to work on, and letting that mentor know we're working with these other mentors on these other areas. So it was kind of a collaborative thing. And I think Mark mentioned, you know, frequencies on some of them would be once a month. And for one of them, we were, you know, every other day for the first week, trying to figure things out. And then that tapered off, right? And so now we're able to kind of bounce things back and forth. You know, it's, you know, as a value add, you know, we make whiskey, so that's always helpful for the mentors if they're into whiskey. That doesn't hurt. But knowing that, you know, if we can give them something back, it would be helpful in that relationship to kind of build that trust. And, you know, sticking to those guidelines, doing your homework, and following up is, hey, you know, is next week's meeting still on? Are we still good? Making sure that we were clear on those communications, and asking them if we could help them in anything was also something. So using our community to help them as well. That's something we try to build, is a lot of community in our business, knowing that it is relationships. And if you can build those stronger, you can kind of spread that web out even greater and wider. So that would be some advice on how to maximize that. You know, look at yourself.
Beautifully said. Let me reinforce that a little bit.
Sure.
Because you hit on a very important aspect, if you will, of not just the long-term relationship you can build, but the whole philosophy around mentorship. You know, I mean, one of those, and I've mentored with Techstars for years. I mean, from first class in Boulder. And what I really have appreciated over the years, there are two things. One is when the founder, the entrepreneur who's asking for help, and they get connected to me with a certain kind of expectation, right? Not necessarily set by me. And, so others are kind of passing on, well, Wendy can help with this or that. When they stop to confirm that that really is expertise that I want to work on with them, they take the time to say, well, I heard that, but I don't want to assume either that expertise wants that you're eager to apply it, or that you even have time to. I love that as the beginning point, because it gives me a sense of their own professionalism and their own value of time, right? And that they just want to get expectations right? I really, this whole assumption thing around mentoring and it's just not good, right? Just because I'm on a list doesn't mean I'm available now. Just because I used to do something a decade ago, does it mean that I'm relevant now? Right. And
Sure.
I don't want to waste anyone's time because my expertise may not be as relevant as it was back in the day. Do you know what I mean? So you mentioned that, and I think that's really important. And it's not OCD, it's not tactical, it's really an emotional setting of expectations and value of time. So that's number one, I want to reinforce that you said. The other is asking after a session is done, 1, 2, or 3, what can I do to help you? When people ask me that, I just swell up with joy. I mean, I really do, because you get to a certain stage and age in life, people don't ask that because they assume you don't need anything. That's so not true, right? They say, well, she must know it all, have it all, that is so not true. So that flow, right, of you saying, and what can I do for you? And maybe I don't drink whiskey, but just the thought that you ask me that, I think really ups the emotional game and the connectivity between us forever. And what we know now about networks, don't we, is that there are ways to stay connected.
Absolutely.
Even without being with each other. Now that's non-trivial, because it has been a blessing and a curse for LinkedIn as a network, right? I don't enjoy blind LinkedIn requests. Oh, well, I was surfing in LinkedIn and I was looking for a mentor in channel strategy. I'm like, because I know, so it's interesting how by you being mindful of time and expectations, asking them what they want, that does encourage me to continue the flow. I want you to know that. It really encourages me to continue the flow, because you were kind enough, human enough, sensitive enough to actually ask me about it, right? So I just want to support you for doing that and for reminding me how important it is.
I appreciate that. Just a quick story. We were talking to our mentor, and they had a pipe burst and flood their basement. And I happened to do some remodeling on my house and gave them the contact, and it worked out beautifully. So it didn't have anything to do with whiskey. It was just what's going on in your world.
Yeah.
Right? So simple gestures like that, and that applies to every entrepreneur and their relationships and their startups. And I think you mentioned earlier, sometimes the mentors, we would talk and they didn't have the exact expertise that we maybe thought on paper that was exactly aligned, but lo and behold, they had expertise over here and we need help everywhere. So maybe it was a good fit for this problem, not this exact problem. So we're able to kind of be flexible and meet that and set that expectation that you were speaking of on a different problem and get that value in a different way than we initially thought, so that's, I think we talked about that vision of, that compass that we talked about earlier. If you have those ideas that we're going this way and here's who we want involved, oh, this might be a good fit for this. So having that flexibility, and we mentioned it earlier, you know, an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be really confident out there in your abilities and your people skills and doing these things. And it's a personal thing for sure. And you have to put that aside. And these mentors are going to ask the hard questions, but you need to listen to them. That would be, you know, you got to have some tough skin there and know that it's better for you. We almost look at it as like, you know, it's guidance, but it's almost like your internal advisory board asking the hard questions before somebody else does, right? So for us, we're trying to raise some funds in the background to get our own production facility. So asking the hard financial questions about our models, these things that, you know, it was tough with COVID. So the answers weren't pretty, but we had to answer those and be honest with ourselves, kind of take that deep breath, almost a step back to move forward. And so I recommend that is, you know, if you can look at yourself first and know that your mentors are going to look even harder, but you're going to come out much stronger with that.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Thank you so much. And thanks again for coming and for reaching out and getting involved with our particular network of mentors, which, by the way, serve in many other networks too. They are not exclusive to us. We are honored to have them work with us and with you, and they also work across the state in other networks, and that's cool because they get that much more experience. So we're going to wrap it up. What a joy this has been, hearing your perspectives on the definition of mentorship, how to identify one, how to engage them, and then finally from Owen's experience of actually having one and how he optimized the benefits on both sides. Mark, maybe summarize a bit for Energize, for those that are familiar with Energize Colorado, where they can go. And Scott, I think we have a slide where they can go to get help from us, and we'll make sure if we're not the right spot, we get them connected to other networks across the state.
You bet. Well, let me say thank you to all of my colleagues on the call today as well, and to everyone who joined us today. I hope you've walked away with a better understanding of what mentorship is, and it has a lot of different definitions, but the intent is the same, and that is to help provide support as a business. And through Energize Colorado, you know, we have a mentorship program that you can access through the website. And know that mentorship can be really, really helpful. If you take a look at how small businesses have engaged, it has been proven that if you work with a mentor and you're fully engaged, that they will help you with your business. So take advantage of that, and take advantage of the additional resources that Energize Colorado has as well. Not only on mentorship, but there are other resources that you can take and access. So take and visit the site, see what's there, see how we can help. Reach out to us. You know, we're here to help. As Wendy was saying, if we don't have the answer, we'll try and point you in the right direction around all of that. So I wish everyone, you know, success. Please reach out to all of the resources that are available through the state of Colorado in helping you grow your business and get back to where you want to be and what your future holds for you. So I wish you all success as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say time is precious. We appreciate you investing an hour with us and exchanging our perspectives on mentorship. And I'm confident if you just lean in a little bit that you'll find a silver lining in the next relationship you build around a problem you have in your business with a mentor. Okay, see you later. Thank you so much.